Good morning. My name is Alvin Briggs, Associate Executive Director for the Alabama High School Athletic Association. I would like to welcome you to our winter sports season best practice presentation today. First, I would like to thank our schools and our members for doing their due diligence during the fall season, for following all the governors and the state health director guidelines. And it's very important that we continue to follow those guidelines as we enter another sports season. We believe our fall sports season has been successful so far, and we would like to continue that during the winter season. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Steve Savarese, our Executive Director, this morning to the stage. Thank you, and have a great rest of the fall season.
Thank you, Alvin, and I appreciate all you do every day here at the association. Before I begin outlining the winter sports season, I truly want to thank each of our member schools for their dedication and commitment regarding our fall sports best practices, thus allowing our students the opportunity to participate in fall sport activities. While we continue to face numerous health-related challenges, our school's commitment to student safety, their everyday flexibility and understanding, along with our wonderful healthcare professionals, have enabled us to be where we are today. While we are truly thankful that yesterday and the day before, we crowned 7 volleyball champions. Soon, we'll begin our cross-country sectionals, start football playoffs next week, and our swimming championships. We will continue to analyze important health data daily, continue to make current decisions, but we truly look forward to our winter sports seasons. I'm pleased and grateful and prayerfully thankful of where we are today. Please understand, as we conclude our fall sport championships, we're going to continue to encounter challenges such as ticket limitations, as we limit attendance to 33% of max capacity. Coaching pass limitations, as the Alabama High School Athletic Directors and Coaches Association has limited coaches pass attendance until we reach the state finals, where capacities are much larger. We do this so we enable local communities, the parents of the players, the band, the cheerleaders to attend our contest. And we always will accept the passes from the participating schools. I thank you very much for your understanding, allowing our schools to maximize local attendance, and very important to our schools. This is also very exciting because we are beginning our winter sports season. I'm extremely thankful we've made it this far, but understandably we still have a long way to go with COVID-19, as it's still prevalent in our communities, and recently in some areas of the state, cases have been increasing. If you think back to June, September, when cases were truly on the decline, all of us were very conscious regarding COVID-19 protocols and AHSAA best practices, as well as staying updated on the latest health-related issues. Today, I'm a little more concerned that some of us, understandably, are showing signs of COVID fatigue. I encourage you to remain diligent with all health-related practices. And as winter approaches, as well as the flu season, it's going to be even more important with indoor activities to remain diligent in our best health-related practices. As we begin our winter season, I want to thank the AHSAA staff for the outstanding job they have done preparing these guidelines under the leadership of Jamie Lee, director of the Alabama High School and Athletic Directors and Coaches Association, who chaired our Winter Sport Best Practice Guidelines project. I thank all of them for their tireless efforts implementing these best practices, their commitment to keeping the best practices updated with the newest and latest health information, and more importantly, to the overall health and safety of our student athletes. I also want to thank the 37 members of our Winter Sport Task Force for their input regarding these best practice guidelines. We also must thank our Central Board of Control under the leadership of new President Van Phillips. Now, Van is not a new guy, but he's our new president, and he is the principal from Center Point High School. And our current Vice President, Mike Welch, is the incoming superintendent for Cherokee County Schools. Their commitment to our student athlete is evident in everything we do. I would also like for us to remember our contest officials, many of whom are of moderate age. Thank you, all our officials, for your commitment to our student athletes. Our association appreciates your service. But I want all of us to remember that official registration in Alabama is down in the sport of basketball by about 25%. So we must provide our officials a safe environment at all of our contests. If we don't do that, we'll end up not being able to host contests. I also would like to thank Dr. James Robinson, Dr. Jeff Dugas, our chair and co-chair of our Medical Advisory Board, and so many others who provide of their time to protect our students. We're extremely grateful to Dr. Scott Harris, Dr. Mark Wilson, the governor and her staff, as well as the entire State Department of Education under the leadership of Dr. Eric Mackey. In addition, Vic Wilson, head of the Principals Association, and Ryan Hollingsworth, director of the Superintendent's Association, have been instrumental providing guidance and assisting our association to mitigate the risk of participation, knowing we can't eliminate all the risk, and demonstrating their confidence in the benefit of educational athletics. We would not be where we are today without all the aforementioned individuals. Likewise, I'd like to recognize all of our coaches, administrators, and our teachers. You're the best. You've been through so much. You've adjusted, you've adapted, you've done an awesome job. The example you've set categorically following the best practice guidelines, not only for athletics, but also in the classroom, is a testament that our entire nation can learn from. Furthermore, we're very grateful to our parents, the fans, and the spectators for their understanding of physical distancing guidelines, wearing masks, and following the governor's health order. Every week, I have traveled to contests all over our state. I've also attended volleyball matches and championships, and I thank you for a job well done. Remembering now, if each of us do our part, continue to practice these guidelines, sooner than later, we'll again be able to fill our arenas and our gyms. We continue to count on our parents to be role models to our children as well as others. As most of our schools participate in athletics, this association remains with the position that any school remaining uncomfortable with participation, either as an individual or system, has that right. Prayerfully, conditions will change sooner than later, and all students in school systems will feel comfortable regarding athletic participation. With almost 100% of our schools participating in winter sports, we are all awaiting solutions to COVID-19. And until we have a reliable solution, athletic participation continues to remain the choice of the school and the parent. As with fall sports, nothing has been normal or will be normal this winter sports season until solutions occur. I continue to encourage everyone to not gauge success by whether a team plays 1 of 30 games, wins a match or a championship, but let the season be measured by the opportunity that was provided from those who benefit from athletic participation. It's not who is playing this week or about winning championships, but the fact that everyone has the opportunity. Now, we understand that not everyone can attend a contest, so we are extremely grateful for the NFHS network, WOTM TV, and the AHSAA radio network for broadcasting multiple contests. If your school is not streaming AHSAA content on the NFHS network, please encourage them to do so. It's of no cost to the school and works extremely well. Schools will have winter sport attendance restrictions, and the NFHS network is more important to those school communities more than ever before. Literally, every school has the opportunity to place a camera in their gyms and to broadcast, live stream that content to everyone, and we encourage them to do so. As we conclude our fall sport championships and begin our winter sport championships, I'm just as thrilled to watch our student coaches and administrators as any time in my career. Watching our students escape from real world issues, if only for a couple of hours, is worth all the effort put forth by all of us. As we continue sport, things may look different, and we may all be a little inconvenienced, but the goal is still the same: building character as well as leaders through educational athletics, and most importantly, allowing our children to have their childhood. Lastly, I want to thank you very much for your understanding, flexibility, and cooperation as we move into our winter sports. I pray that God will continue to bless all of you. I pray that you will remain safe. And I ask all of you to continue to pray for all those affected. God bless. Have a great day. It is now my privilege to introduce the person who is responsible for putting forth these best practices, our director of the Alabama High School Athletic Directors and Coaches Association, also the director of basketball, does a wonderful, wonderful job for our association. Please welcome Jamie Lee.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that very, very much. And good morning, and thank you for being with us. I want to personally take the opportunity to thank Coach Savarese for his leadership here at the Alabama High School Athletic Association. And my 20-plus years of coaching, being in my own little world, probably didn't give a whole lot of thought to all the decisions and all the questions and problems and solutions that arise out of this office at the Alabama High School Athletic Association. But now that I've been here a while, I would imagine many of you were in the same boat. You don't really give thought to all of the issues that come up that the AHSAA has to deal with. And I can assure you, no one gets more calls and more emails than Coach Savarese concerning high school athletics. And I just appreciate his leadership and appreciate what he does for our office and all of our member schools throughout our state, and what he has done to get us to this point to where we can compete, and our student athletes have been able to compete this fall. So I'm very thankful for his leadership. As he mentioned, we put together a winter task force made up of 37 different people, multiple coaches, administrators from all across the state in all of our winter sports. And I want to personally thank them for their input, for their vision, for their information, for their candid talks that we had about their sports. Their leadership was invaluable, and our ability to be able to do what we do, their leadership and their information that they shared to us, the concerns they had, was invaluable as we put this together. And so I want to thank them for all the time that they spent talking to us, talking as a committee as a whole, talking in individual groups, and I'll get into that in a little bit later. Coach also mentioned our AHSAA staff. Our staff, it was not me. While I was the leader of the task force, our staff put in countless hours, not only as the directors of their individual sports, but collectively trying to get the best information possible from as many sources as possible to put this together. And so I'm very thankful for them. I appreciate what they do. Thank them for their work and for all that they've done to put this to this point. They've done a fantastic job keeping me in line and keeping this thing going. So I want to give you a little bit of background about where we came from, how this came about. Like I mentioned, we put a task force together of coaches in all the winter sports to get information and have dialogue from those coaches. We also had administrators involved, and as well as Coach Savarese mentioned, our medical advisory board, Dr. Jimmy Robinson and Dr. Jeff Dugas, helped us with get to this point. As we met through Zoom calls, team meeting calls, virtually, not only as a large group, but multiple times as small groups within each individual sports, it became evident not only the concerns we have, but the passion of our coaches to try to get to a season, to try to make sure that we do the right things to try to get to a season, to keep our students healthy, our communities healthy and safe, and with the ultimate goal, as was the fall championships, and that is to get to a championship in the winter. As we get moving to the first of the next year, to be able to have a championship in bowling, in indoor track, in wrestling, and basketball. And so ultimately this document was laid out in front with that in mind, to try to get to a championship, to have a season in hopes to try to get to a championship. This is a very fluid document, as Coach mentioned, and I want to make very clear that we have done our best and will continue to do our best to try to stay current with the ADPH's current guidelines, as well as the governor's, whatever the governor's state health order is. And so we will do our best to try to stay current. So it's possible that this document could change. We are hopeful and prayerful that it will change in a positive way, and maybe it can be less restrictive. But if things turn in the other way and we have to go more restrictive, then obviously that's what we need to do. But we are going to stay current with the guidelines laid out by the State Department of Public Health and our governor's office. The document can be found right on the very front page of our website. Go to AHSAA.com, and it says Winter Best Practice Document is right there on the front page. You can click that, and any link that we might address or might mention here in just the next few minutes or two will be right there in that document. So as I wanted to hit some high points today of the document, to go through some of it, and again, you can find this document on our website in its entirety, and know that as it is updated from time to time, we will update it on our website. Matter of fact, the one that has been on there for a couple of weeks now was just updated this morning with a new statement that I'll address here in just a minute, so know that we will continue to keep it updated. I want to draw your attention to the very first paragraph under the purpose of this document, and that is, again, that all local and school administration should stay familiar with all the minimum requirements of the current state health order. This document in its entirety overall will continue to go back to that state health order. We will focus on that state health order and whatever guidelines are set in place. So make sure that you, as a school administration, you are familiar with what the current state order says, in particular paragraph 11, which deals with athletics, athletic contests, and the like. So please make sure that you're up to date on that. In addition, I want to remind you, back in July the 23rd, I think it was, somewhere in that neighborhood, we released the fall sports best practices. And so this document for winter sports is similar in a lot of ways. There are a lot of things that are very similar to that fall document. And so please keep in mind that we sometimes in this winter sport document we address or mention the fall sports document, so you can always go back to that. And again, it is still on our website. It was last updated on September the 10th, and so there are some things in there. Some general education that I want to mention, and again, it's very current to the health document, but I think this is very important. I'm just going to read this verbatim. The state health order requires players, coaches, officials, and spectators to refrain from congregating within 6 feet of a person from another household, except to the extent necessary for players, coaches, and officials to directly participate in the activity. And then it states that when physical distancing cannot be maintained, facial coverings must be worn. So we've been talking about that and dealing with that all throughout the fall. Obviously, it's going to stay in place throughout the winter as long as that is in the governor's health order. And so we can't encourage you enough to make sure that as you set the capacities in your gym and you start talking about your gymnasiums for your wrestling tournaments and your wrestling events and your basketball events, that you are paying attention to that state order, health order, and making sure that your students and your crowd socially distances and wears those facial coverings. Again, under the facilities, we address the paragraph 11B and 11C in the state health order that talks about not congregating and making sure that you're social distance. That was last updated from the governor on September the 30th. So if you haven't read that in the last month, you need to go back and read that, see if there's any changes from the last time you took a look at it. And we know that she's planning on that health order ends on November the 8th, so we would expect some type of update sometime within the next week or so from our governor's office. Rules modifications. In our indoor sports, there have been a few rules modifications for all 4 of the indoor sports. None of them are that major, but I do encourage you to go to our website and click on this document and click on the NFHS link that's provided there. So you can go and look at any of the rules changes that might be prevalent in the NFHS document for recommendations to change some of the rules for those indoor sports. And I'm going to go over a couple of those that we feel important as we go through this. But I would encourage you to go read the recommendations and the modifications from the NFHS. Coach mentioned officials, and as our office, one of our gravest concerns is not only capacities in our gymnasiums, but the health and safety of our officials. He mentioned that in basketball, the sport of basketball in particular, is down about 25% in terms of the officials. And we get calls daily from our office, to our office, from officials asking questions about safety for them. And there's a lot of concern out there about being the middle of the action, especially on the basketball court. And so I just want to make sure that you do your diligence to read the best practices concerning contest officials. Please make sure that you communicate with them ahead of time where they're going to be located, where their locker room is going to be, or where their classroom, if you're putting them in a classroom, where that might be. The precautions that you're taking to keep them safe. Please make sure they know any local restrictions that your community might have that they might need to be aware of. Please make sure you do your best to keep their dressing room and locker room clean ahead of time. Maybe put some hand sanitizer in there, soap and water. If soap and water is not available, if it's not a locker room, put some hand sanitizer in there and keep them safe from that standpoint. But I would just beg of you to make sure that your officials feel safe when they come in the gym. We are going to ask all of our officials, it has already been mentioned to them several times and will continue to make sure they find home management as soon as they walk in the door, and they discuss all the game management issues that they might have related to COVID with the home management, and you guys make sure that you take care of them to the best of their ability. There are a couple things we'll mention about basketball as we get into that in just a moment. Ticketing. If you have not done your diligence in football season, volleyball season with digital ticketing, we want to encourage you to do the digital ticketing through your school. It'll make things easier for you, and it's all said and done. As we get into the best practices for each individual sport, we'll start with the sport of basketball. And right at the very first bullet, it mentions to you that attendance to events cannot exceed whatever the current state health order is. I want to remind you that let's just say we have a basketball game and we have 3 teams playing in a night. So we have our JV team playing and our boys and girls varsity. If your gym capacity is set at 350 people and after that JV boys game or girls game, those students end up in the stands, then you need to remember those students count towards your capacity. And so please, please, please make sure that you have studied your gyms, figured out how you're going to sit your people, know what capacity you can put in your gyms, and keep in mind your teams that have just finished a game will move into that crowd in most cases. So we ask you to look at that and continue to look at paragraph 11 of the state health order. On Monday, we sent out a email to all principals, superintendents, athletic directors, and the basketball coaches with a new update already that has been added to this document effective this morning, so it is updated online now, with a statement that says the AHSAA recommends that all spectators, fans, cheerleaders, etc., be a minimum of 6 feet away from the playing surface. So I know in all of my years coaching basketball, there were many times, and in our home gym it was the same way, that especially across from the benches, the team benches, that first row of bleachers was basically right on the court. And so it is our recommendation that every gym do what they have to do to maintain a 6-foot spacing between the playing surface and that first line of crowd, those first spectators, and that includes your cheerleaders. We have stated that clearly to our officials. Our officials know that, and so they may come to you during the course of the game and say, look, we've got to get our fans pushed back. Again, anything we can do to keep our officials feeling safe in that game to be able to play the way it needs to be played. A couple things relative to the game that our basketball coaches know or should know that'll be prevalent to the administration as well is we've asked all of our officials to host their pregame meetings at the center circle. They will meet with the coaches first, one coach from each team, the head coach from each team first. Then they'll bring one captain to the center circle to meet with the official, just a captain and an official. So we've really tried to limit those pregame meetings. We're asking you to do away with all pregame handshakes, fist bumps, anything like that with the other team as well as with the officials that have become prevalent in the sport of basketball. We're asking all that to be taken away. There are other things that are relative to contest management. I know you can read through, and if you have any questions, reach out to me. I do want to mention area contest. It is very important that all area contests be played as early as possible. Now, I know basketball coaches don't really want to do that, and I understand, but you need to make all considerations possible to try to get those games in as early as you can, just in case something were to happen in mid-January, late January, and you have some COVID issues on your team and you have to cancel those area games. You need to be aware, and it's the second bullet under contests, area contest, that if an area game is canceled for any reasons, the schools have to reschedule that area game no later than February 2nd. That's the drop dead date for area games, have to be played by February 2nd. And so we would ask you to make sure all those games are rescheduled before then. And if for some reason an area game cannot be rescheduled before February 2nd, the team that canceled that contest will be given a forfeit. And so understand that all contests will count. If it's a canceled game and you're not able to make it up an area game, then the team that had to cancel that game will receive a forfeit, and it will go on your area record when it comes to seeding for the area tournament. The biggest issue or fear, if that's what you want to call it, that we really worry about our office is these holiday Christmas tournaments, Thanksgiving tournaments, Christmas tournaments, the large tournaments that have been prevalent in the sport of basketball that we understand are big money makers. So I've spoken with many of you coaches, many of you athletic directors, but again, we put it in our document. The number of teams, you really need to consider how you're going to do that. We recommend you limit those teams If you're going to play it in one facility, you limit those teams to a smaller number than normal. Maybe you still want to have a 16-team tournament, but you do it in multiple facilities instead of playing all 8 games in one day in one gym. You're going to have the ability to clean those facilities in between games to get those fans in and out. Also, I think it's important that you make sure when you're having your tournaments that you have an entrance and an exit for your teams and your officials that are separate from the general population. Finally, I want to mention team benches. Understand that your team benches can start at the timeline, the coaching box, and go all the way as far as you need to go to socially distance those student athletes. But your student athletes need to make sure they sit more than 6 feet apart. When they're on the bench, they're wearing a facial covering. All of our coaches should wear a facial covering unless they're actively coaching in the game. So pretty much all your assistants should always have a facial covering on during the contest. Bowling, so much of the bowling limitations will come down to the bowling facilities, the local bowling facilities. They will set the attendance capacity. They will set the number of people they're going to allow in the bowling facility to watch the event or to participate in the event. That's based on those local guidelines that they have. So much of the bowling is really going to come down to your local centers. So I would make sure that I contact them. I knew exactly what they expected of you as an administration and as a team when it comes to the number of people that might be able to come in and watch that event. A couple of things that I think are important from a changing the bowling standpoint, or things that we've asked you to do, is one, we're not going to alternate lanes between games. We're going to get on a lane and stay on that one lane. There is one mistake that we will update in the event, and that is it says bowlers will be limited to 1 ball per contest. It actually means 1 ball in the carrier, and so they can actually use 2 balls in the event, but only 1 ball in the carrier during that time. So that is something that we will update and make sure is corrected on this. But bowling is a great event. We'll have a great season. We just want to make sure that they stay safe, and so again, we ask you to reach out to those bowling facilities during the regular season and make sure anything that they ask you to do that you're able to do. In the sport of wrestling, I didn't mention to start, but from any medical advisor, any medical doctor from a national level or the local level will tell you that basketball and wrestling are the 2 highest risk sports that we play relative to COVID. And so we spend a lot of time with our basketball coaches, spend a lot of time with our wrestling coaches, trying to figure out what's best, what we need to do from a health and safety standpoint. And one of the major changes for wrestling is that until further notice from the AHSAA, all events, that includes regular season matches and any tournaments, should be limited to a maximum of 4 teams in that event. So this will allow us to contract trace. This will allow us to make sure we know which wrestler wrestled another wrestler. Not only are we asking our coaches to limit it to 4 teams, but we're also asking them to do nothing but duels. And so that way, in a 4-team event, if I'm the wrestler at 135, I'm only going to wrestle 3 people because I'm in a dual event situation, and that way we can contact trace within 48 hours. And so we really ask, and our coaches did a phenomenal job of understanding and helping us walk through that. And so until we get to further notice, again, we were going to say make that a maximum of 4 teams per event. The other thing that we deal with so much in wrestling sometimes is the floor. The students, the other wrestlers getting ready to wrestle, the other coaches, sometimes spectators being on the floor or near the floor, near the mat. And so the 3rd bullet under event management mentions that floor access during matches should be limited to only those essential to that individual match. And so what is that? Well, we consider that the 2 wrestlers, the 2 coaches, all right, so 1 coach per team, the referee, the timekeeper, and any medical staff that might need to be by. That is the only people that should be on that mat or near that mat during an individual event. So we're going to ask and make sure that our coaches do their diligence to keep everyone else away, socially away from the mat, so that we can keep that mat area clean. I would also draw the attention to all of our wrestling coaches the next bullet under that, and that says individuals non-essential to the match but in progress, not limited to players waiting to wrestle, spectators, media, photographers, etc., are prohibited from the mat. And then it states very clearly that failure to abide by this safety protocol will, at the discretion of the meet official, result in a loss of team points. So that official has the ability, if the teams will not adhere to that, to take away team points during that as a federation rule that we will abide by. And so I want to make sure that all of our coaches understand that. The normal things we would do that we've talked to you about in football and volleyball and cross country, with the cleaning of the mat, cleaning of the benches, keeping your hands sanitized, all those things are in every part of this, and so I would encourage you to read that, as well as the locker rooms situation. Indoor track, the thing I want to draw your attention to, you know, we basically have one indoor track facility in the city of Birmingham, Crossplex. They did a phenomenal job this past week with volleyball championships. I was very impressed with them, with the leadership of our ladies, Denise Ainsworth and Kim Vickers, helping them get that volleyball event the way it should have been in terms of getting fans in and out, contestants, the players, student athletes being able to compete. They did a great job, and so I know they will continue to do a great job during indoor. The Crossplex has set a maximum attendance as of today of 950 people in that Crossplex for every indoor track meet. Now that's today's number. That includes the roughly 450 athletes that might run in a normal event. So we want to make sure you understand in our indoor track events, we may have some attendance issues. It's a large arena, and so our staff, along with our indoor track coaches, Coach Hind at Hoover especially, has done a phenomenal job of organizing indoor track, and we think we have a great plan in place for our student athletes to be able to have a great indoor track season. A lot of bullet points for you to run through and look at, but ultimately it comes down to the same thing. We're going to wear facial coverings, we're going to remain social distance, we're going to keep our fans on one side of the stands, we're going to keep our student athletes on the other, and we're going to have a great event. But again, I would just ask you to read through those bullet points as we get through it. I can't say enough, sort of what Coach Savarese said, is please do not stop. Probably no one has more COVID fatigue than me, and so Coach Savarese every now and then has to call me in and say, hey, let's go, you got to pick it up a little bit. And but we have got to continue to do our diligence. It will be the responsibility of our parents and our coaches and our administrators to help us teach these young people that yes, it may be getting old, but it is the right thing to do, and we're going to get through this. We're going to fight through this, and we're going to get through it. We're going to have a great winter sports season. Our student athletes will remember this for the rest of their lives. The year that they had to participate with a facial covering on from time to time, and the year they had to compete during a COVID pandemic. But please stay strong and diligent. We're going to get through this. If you have any questions about this document, I would encourage you to either call our office, email our office, and we will do our best to answer any questions that we can help you with. Let me just run down, just so you know, obviously we all can help you in any form or fashion in our office. Some people are a little better in other areas and maybe a weak in others, or maybe they don't know the sport. So for instance, I don't know the sport of wrestling that great, and so I will help you any way I can, but I would ask you to call Marvin. Marvin is the director of wrestling. I would ask you to call Denise Ainsworth when it comes to bowling, if you have a bowling question. Coach Briggs, Alvin Briggs, is the director of indoor track, and then I'm the director of basketball. But any of our staff can help you at any time, and so please reach out to us, and we'll be glad to help you if you have any questions about anything. You can call the office or email. Either way will be fine. Finally, I want to mention one last thing. If we will do our job and continue to do our job, and you as administrators and you as coaches will continue to do your job, we may have some issues, just like we've had in volleyball and football this year. where we've had teams to have to postpone or drop out. But I firmly believe we can have a season that will culminate with a championship at the end of the year. So I just beg of you to do your diligence. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We'll do our best to help you. And I wish you nothing but the best. Good luck as you kick off the basketball season next Thursday and our winter sports get started. Have a great year.